When you go on pilgrimage to the Holy Land, I say this with full confidence that pilgrims will be able to travel there again someday, you too may come into the district of Caesarea Philippi. It's about 25 miles north of the Sea of Galilee in the Golan Heights, territory that Israel seized from Syria in the Six-Day War of 1967. The ancient city of Caesarea Philippi is now called Banias. It's an Israeli national park. The tour bus disgorges pilgrims next to a broad, gentle river flowing down from a hill above you. You follow a trail uphill, minding the signs that warn you not to wander off the trails anywhere in the park, as there may still be unexploded landmines and bombs from the war, and after a few hundred yards, you reach the focal point of ancient Caesarea Philippi. It's a temple complex devoted to the Greco-Roman god Pan. That's the half-human, half-goat god. Signs around the temple ruins explain the worship of Pan that was carried out in several buildings there, and describe the Roman army garrisoned in town to protect the temple and its visitors. You learn about the other set of ancient ruins in Caesarea Philippi, the palace, administrative capital, and market of Batanea, a province ruled by Jewish kings who were clients of the Roman Empire. Caesarea Philippi was a center of religious, military, political, and economic power. Caesarea Philippi seems like just a place, something you look up on a map of New Testament geography. Matthew mentions it so casually that it sounds like a throwaway detail. Jesus went a lot of places. Here's another one. But Caesarea Philippi means something. It's where the army, the king, the priests of Pan, the business authorities are. All the powers that be in Jesus' world. All the forces that oppress and entrap and enslave Jesus' people. All of these powers opposed to his teaching, his movement, his very life. Usually these forces are invisible. They hide behind, that's just the way things are. They teach people not to see them. But here, at Caesarea Philippi, the powers that be are right out in the open. And it's here, in the district of Caesarea Philippi, that Jesus chooses to ask the disciples a critical question. Who do you say that I am? You've heard what others are saying. Who do you say that I am? This question is not only about Jesus and his identity, it's about the disciples and their identity, their loyalty, their trust. The disciples can be what the Roman imperial machine says they are, faceless, nameless expendables. Or they can be who Jesus knows they are, beloved children of God, valuable and precious. Jesus has brought the disciples to Caesarea Philippi to show them the chains that bind them. And he offers them the key to their freedom. Who do you say that I am? Do you choose Caesarea Philippi, or do you choose me? Jesus holds out the key to freedom, and Peter seizes it. Peter gives the only answer he can. You are the Messiah, the Son of God. It is a holy moment, Peter's embrace of his truest self, with perhaps a subversive little thrill of sticking it to the Romans. Not that Peter has everything figured out yet. None of the disciples have. At the very end of Matthew's gospel, the disciples are still learning who Jesus is, who they are in him, and what his life and ministry mean. This authority of binding and loosing, of interpreting Jesus' teaching, Peter's going to spend the rest of his life growing into that. For now, he can see the chains of Caesarea Philippi, how they wrap around his ankles and legs and hold his arms at his sides and limit him in body, mind, and spirit. Peter takes the key Jesus offers him, puts it in the lock, and begins to discover his freedom. Freedom from Caesarea Philippi is never the end goal in itself. Ignatius Loyola, the 16th century Spaniard who founded the Jesuit order of Catholic priests, talked about two kinds of freedom in Christ. There is freedom from the forces that enslave and bind us. And there is freedom for knowing, loving, and serving God and God's people, who are all people. Freedom in Christ always has a purpose. Peter's freedom from the chains of Caesarea Philippi was freedom for sharing the good news of Jesus. Once Peter set aside who Caesarea Philippi said he was, a worthless nobody, once he could see himself as a beloved child of God, he could recognize the gifts of healing, preaching, and leadership God had given him. Peter could use those gifts for the good of the world. Peter used his freedom to help free us all these years later. And we use our freedom to help free others to know, love, and serve God and all people. Central Ohio doesn't look much like Caesarea Philippi. The powers that be, the forces that bind us and hold us captive, are not so out in the open here. They're so much a part of our everyday lives that we don't see them most of the time. We've been taught not to see them, because if we can't see them, we can't free ourselves from them. These forces can keep their power over us. This pandemic has been a rare moment of unveiling. It's an apocalypse in the technical sense of that word, revealing that which is hidden. Many of us who are white and well-educated and doing all right financially didn't see systematic racism and structural inequality before now, or didn't see them as clearly as we now do. Until stores began running out of meat, I had not realized just how precarious our food supply is, how it depends on migrant laborers and meatpacking workers and grocery clerks who are overwhelmingly people of color, working for low wages with no paid sick days and no health insurance. The Caesarea Philippi of our time says these people are nameless, worthless, expendable. Caesarea Philippi makes everyone who eats complicit in their exploitation. The system is set up so that we don't see the workers who produce our food. We don't see how they are held captive. We don't see that when they get sick, the rest of us won't eat. Because they are not free, none of us is free. We can see those chains now, binding all of us. The moment when Caesarea Philippi is unveiled and all those chains become visible is a powerful one. It's when freedom becomes possible. I wonder if we're not on the verge of that moment now that school is about to resume. The Caesarea Philippi of our time says that our worth as human beings is determined by our achievement. The grades we get in school, the sports trophies we win, where we go to college, our accomplishments and productivity at work, the titles and rank we hold. Before Coronatide, we may not have noticed this message. It was so subtle and pervasive that it was hard to see. That's the way the world is, we thought. And then schools went online. Even the brightest kids found virtual school a struggle. Sports were canceled. Work teams couldn't meet their goals with parents having to supervise their children's education. Everybody was so anxious and distracted that we were functioning at barely half our normal brain capacity. However school is happening this year, it will be different. It will affect many other spheres of our lives, whether we have children at home or not. We are not going to be able to achieve like we used to. Like Caesarea Philippi tells us we have to. Jesus comes into the district of Caesarea Philippi and asks, "Who do you say that I am?" Who are you? Are you a person defined by your worldly achievement? Or are you a beloved child of God, valuable and precious, even if it seems like you don't accomplish a single thing in your life? Once you are freed from the weight of achievement, how will you be free for knowing, loving, and serving God and all people? Jesus holds out the key to freedom for us all. He comes into Caesarea Philippi and asks, "Who do you say that I am?" Where do you place your trust, your loyalty? With Caesarea Philippi or with me? We answer as Peter did. You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. And we take that key from Jesus. We turn the key in the lock and our chains fall away. We grow into our freedom in Christ. Freedom from captivity, freedom for knowing, loving, and serving God and all people.